one anecdote to that, and Kirk, if you're cool with that, I'll mention that because he was. We're living in Atlanta, and he was just transferring from Atlanta where he worked at, and that's a whole nother story.
Yeah,
which is cool. If you read the book, you'll go back. But he was a bouncer at the Gold Club and some other places when he got there, which is a whole cool other piece. Being a Force Recon Marine, he was staying with me, and he came back from that tour, and he talked about his buddy getting killed, and I could tell he was pretty shocked about it. He's like, yeah, this guy named Bam is a friend of mine. He's about your size, big dude, big guy. I just got back from the tour, and he got shot right in front of me. And I'm like, and you're going back? He's like, yeah, man, I got bills to pay. I was like, all right, dude. I mean, but I remember that like it was yesterday.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
That was probably 2003 or 4 or whatever that was.
It's a different mindset
But that was amazing. But yeah, I'll never forget when he told me that. He said it very deadpan, very straight, very just kind of like you watch, like, I don't know, a dog get run over. I mean, it was very, and probably how you have to process that, I would imagine.
Yeah. And, you're constantly processing this stuff, honestly. And that's the thing when you see these guys today, when you're about the PTSD and the alcoholism, drug use, divorce, all these things, they're still processing the stuff they've dealt with for the last 20 years. And that was one of the big reasons I wrote the book. It's like, look, I still process it. It's perfectly normal for you to still process it. You're not doing anything wrong. So,
and you're processing the same event. It just isn't. You don't process it once and it's all gone.
No.
You have to go through that several different times.
Sure, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, and one more. We got 10 minutes. Sure. So
we got plenty of time.
Do the helicopter piece that you talked about. So he had left, and I'll say, I'm like his third person narrator. It's there because I read it. Did the Ramadi piece, left that, came in. He was getting a little bit older, and actually, if you Google Jocko Willink, Chris Kyle, some of these people these are all stars, rock stars. Chris Kyle did American Sniper. He served with Chris Kyle. Jocko Willink, who I follow, what was Jocko? Ranger?
He was the SEAL team commander.
SEAL team commander
in Ramadi.
Jocko has his own podcast. You Google him. He's a rock star here locally too. Served with them, so he kind of served with these guys. Realized he's getting older. His body's not responding as well as it was before, and then he got into. But the cool thing about this, we'll Kirk get into. He was one of the oldest students who got qualified right under you. You're older than actually your company commander,
the battalion commander.
To fly choppers. Yeah. So after he did all this stuff in Ramadi, he went through training to fly helicopters. Just barely made it under, because you're in great shape, but I mean, just barely made it physically and age-wise. Talk about that, and then going into your first chopper duty.
So I have a question about that. Now, was this while you were in the military, or was this as a contractor?
So it gets a little convoluted there. I left the State Department as a contractor, and I went to a special program, a special mission unit, if you will, for the intelligence community. What I will always refer to it as the special programs. I've seen some guys who I've served with who've been very open about who we were with and what we were doing. I remember signing a non-disclosure agreement, and I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know where they're going. Again, man, I'm not judging or whatever. I don't. Maybe they got buddies or something. I feel comfortable saying that I served in a special operations unit within the intelligence community. From there, I went. I tried to get in the Army, and I was too old for the Army, and I missed it by 2 weeks. But I was told if I went to the National Guard, that they could give me an age waiver. So what Ron was saying, I was. It's the same training. It's just who pays the bill. I was 39 years old when I graduated from flight school. I was the oldest person to graduate from flight school, and then a little over a decade later, at almost 50, I was the oldest person to transition to the Apache.
Wow, that's amazing.
So,
and that's what you do now. You're a commercial pilot now.
I'm a commercial pilot now. I'm not flying. I'm still in the Guard, but I'm in a non-flying position. I'm at that point in my career where I can kind of let the younger guys do it, if you will.
But talk about just how you got in there. I mean, in the story, you're 39, you got in the training, and then you had some vets there in the book about, and you were kind of training the younger guys, and because you're one of the few combat guys.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of being a mentor to these guys who are all just, and they went to Ivy League schools.
Sure.
But you went through the School of Hard Knocks in combat.
Yeah.
at flight school for the helicopter stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was, they call it Fort Novosel, now it was Fort Rucker at the time. But you had the West Point guys, you had the guys coming out of whatever college, and you had combat vets. You had ex-Rangers, ex-infantry, armor guys, and stuff like that. And they would try not to pair up two similar people. For example, my stick buddy was a West Point guy, and people would look at us, and they would say, "Hey," they would look at him, a good guy, but they would be like, "Hey, man, how is this? Man, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life." I'm like, all right, well, Kirk, what do you think about this? I'm like, well, it's okay, man. It's, whatever. And, you want to say it in the right way because you don't want to, like, insult these people.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there are some egos involved here. You know what I mean? You're dealing with people. So you wanted to be careful about rubbing people. You know what I mean? That you're, again, this.
It's not like they're driving through Alabama
Right.
Village.
Right.
Or
You know what I
walking
mean?
through it. Yeah,
right.
this is-
So,
yeah.
but
different.
so myself and the other combat vets are trying to be like, hey, look, guys, I know you're getting your ass kicked right now, but this is academic stuff, and what's important is when you leave here and being a leader and being showing up on time and you doing exactly what you're telling everyone else to do. Don't be that guy that tells someone to empty the garbage can. Go over there and empty the garbage can, and make sure everyone sees you doing it. You're a warrant officer or a commissioned officer. Make sure they see you do it. Make sure that you make sure your people go to eat before you do. Make sure they see that. Not like beating your chest, but let them know that you're going to take care of them. You're a leader. That's the important stuff. Memorizing parts and pieces on aircraft, that's not important. What's important is what you do when you leave here. So.
Okay. Again, name of the book, eventually.
Sure. It's War Junkie, A Cautionary Tale. It will be available on Amazon. I have a potential publicist. She's a big name. I don't know if I can use her name just yet because we hadn't signed papers. But I did say, hey, look, I got a buddy of mine wants to do the audio, and she said he needs to wait at least 6 months after the book comes out because what she wants to do is advertise the book. She's got the horsepower. And then 6 months later, hey, the audio's out, and then we do the whatever the book tour, whatever the process is.
Okay.
So War Junkie, A Cautionary Tale.
All right, so we're probably going to see you at Page and Palette in about 6 months.
Well, how long does it take to get through the DOD?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
You don't know, do you?
No one knows. And see, I have to go through multiple agencies. I served in a foreign military. I served with 2 government agencies. I was in 2 military branches. It gets a little convoluted,
So everybody's got to sign off, right?
Everyone has to say, yeah.
And I didn't serve with him, but I can tell you thematically, the journey of the book's going to be his growth and then his motivation about getting into it. And it's going to be about his learning about going to Ramadi. There's a lot of life lessons in the book, and it's dark in some ways, but it's going to be educational in others, and it's going to be a good book. But it talks about his journey about learning, about PTSD, about combat, about just different things. And you're going to walk in Kirk's shoes, in a lot of ways. But you're going to finish reading the book, learning like maybe you weren't in combat, but you're going to learn some lessons maybe about what you thought it was, what it actually is, and maybe understand when you go out and you see that homeless veteran on the street, or if you see somebody who's screaming at shadows, who's all combat, or you see somebody who because you hear the stereotype all the time about people who are vets and PTSD, and thank God I didn't go in combat.
Well, we look at just Hollywood.
Right.
Look at the 60s, 70s, 80s, the movies that came out.
Well, Black Hawk Down can't be anything like what had really happened.
Look at Rambo.
Well, I know, but Black Hawk Down was based on a true story.
True, but still, I mean, look at these images that Hollywood has of what that American hero is supposed to be.
Yeah.
Vietnam changed a lot of that.
Sure.
And then the whole PTSD. I should know that. The PTSD, we're still working our way through that. And the egos that some of these people have that have never served, and how they look down on the veterans with PTSD. And the psychological stuff, we're still breaking ground on
Absolutely.
that, just from a medical side.
Absolutely.
We got a long way to go.
Long way to go.
So, what do you see from us living in the South? Maybe a little more militaristic minded than the rest of the country. What should we maybe focus on a little bit more than what we're doing right now?
In the South or the country focus on?
Both.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. There's a lot in the book. I get it. What I try to point at is the failures in leadership, which the South is extremely patriotic, and
Yep.
a lot of your military people come from the South, and there's a lot of theories on why that is. And I'm not a Jordan Peterson. I couldn't tell you, but what I will say is there's too many times people are put up on pedestals for example, oh, this person is a general. You can't say anything bad about that person. Yes, you can.
Great man syndrome.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have more generals and admirals today than we did in World War II, and we only have 1/5 the size of the military. So we have too many chiefs, not enough Indians. That's the biggest complaint that I have. There's a disconnect between leaders and the people down there doing it. And I could give you a million stories. There's plenty in the book about the disconnect. So what can we do as you should demand, and I don't want to be political here, but let's just say a senator next door held up promotions for a while. He was well within his right to do that. We've got enough generals. We've got enough colonels. We've got enough admirals. We've got enough of these people. Only 15% of the military, and most people don't know this, only 15% has a job that like Ron and I used to do. And I'm not putting those other people down, but as a taxpayer, you should say, look, man, I need some accountability here. Imagine if only 15% of your fire department went out and put out fires. Why are you paying your taxes?
So you're saying 85% of the military right now are paper pushers?
Has a non-combat job. That's correct.
Okay.
85%.
My dad was pre-Vietnam. All right. So actually, he was Gulf of Tonkin.
Oh, wow.
He
Okay.
saw that.
Yeah.
And they shipped him to Iceland. He broke down.
I'm going to jump in for just a minute.
Go ahead.
Kirk is a major combat historian. That's another thing you don't know. He studied when he was in high school. And I read the book, so I know this.
Oh, so
he
know
knows
what
about
Johnson said
combat
about
history.
Tonkin.
Yes,
And you know what really happened.
Yes, he does. He's a huge student of combat history from World War I, II, Vietnam. When everybody else was reading God knows what, he was pulling out combat history novels. Like he'd found his purpose in kind of like that reading histories about the wars and stuff. So I just wanted to throw that in when you're asking.
So when I get it is he went through that and did the Gulf of Tonkin. They shipped him off to Iceland. Well, the boat he was on broke down, and he wound up in somewhere in Spain, Rota.
Mm-hmm.
He wound up in Rota for 9 months, and he said that was spectacular, the greatest 9-month vacation he ever had. But then he winds up in Iceland for like 2 years, and he goes, "I think they stuck me there just because I saw what Tonkin what went on there, and they just got me out of the way." He goes, "Everybody that was there that knew, we all just kind of got dispersed because Johnson was hell-bent and determined on what he did." How much of that's still going on?
It goes on more than you think.
Yeah.
I've worked for 3 heads of state in my career and 1 cabinet level official, and you would be surprised at the conversations that go on when these things aren't around, when the cameras aren't around. You'd be amazed. It happens more often than you think.
The lobbyists are not only running Congress; they're running the military.
They run it all. They run it all. And that's the thing when you asked about what can we do, you have to demand accountability of the senior leaders.
What I hear from what you're saying, and me and the upbringing I had is, don't believe everything you're told.
Believe nothing that you hear and half of what you see.
Okay.
It's
especially now, dude. With way you can hear I am saying, dude.
Well,
the way we can manipulate stuff on the internet, it's hard to really and these people blindly believe.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
yeah.
that's a little concerning.
It's very
'cause
concerning.
During the 60s and 70s, we were very much wanting accountability in our government. At what time did we change? In your opinion?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a great question. I think the lunatics are running the asylum,
Both parties.
Well,
I mean,
sure, both parties. I can only speak to what I've seen in my lifetime. More people are easily fooled, and you can go back so many times in history. I think Hitler said people would rather believe a lie than the truth, or
Yep.
something. And I think Mark Twain said something about the lie would make it all the way around the world while the truth is still putting on his tennis shoes. So this is not unprecedented with human behavior. And those of us, and it may only be 10% of us, or hopefully more than that, who really see it like, I don't believe that. When I was a kid, I knew wrestling wasn't real. But I was one of the only kids that did know that. Not every kid knew. And I was like, you guys don't believe this, do you? Oh, my God, did you just see that guy get smacked by the chair? And I'm like, come on, bro. You don't really. Man, that's 90% of the population, and they're voting.
So
and
if
they're doing
Levi's
this.
here,
That's right.
if Levi was here, we would have to bring him down off the pedestal because I think he still believes wrestling.
He loves wrestling.
Yeah,
Well,
he
no,
loves
I
it.
love wrestling, but I have personal, which is in the book as well. I have personal friends who are wrestlers, and they would always say the outcomes are predetermined. Now that's fine. It's
But in
entertainment.
between-
It's entertainment.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you cannot look at You can't look at I don't know. Pick whatever entertaining show. That's not reality. It's entertaining. It's entertainment. You just if I'm making
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, some people think the NFL is now predetermined. So
That's-
And it could be.
And it is.
And it could be.
Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. The outcomes are predetermined.
that's
No
why
doubt. No
Alabama
doubt.
didn't win everything.
the
again,
cheaters won this year. The cheaters won. There's no doubt
right?
about it.
He's
And
such an Alabama
it was
fan.
just to get Jim Harbaugh a job with
a job at
Yeah.
But I can tell you from, again, just reading Kirk's book, or it seems like a catharsis. I mean, you've done a lot. I mean, but
Thank you.
And you're getting some demons out. You're
Sure.
you're
Oh,
getting
sure.
some things out,
Sure.
and working through some things through the storyline, and you're letting people kind of walk in your shoes, like I'd mentioned before. But you're obviously wrestling with some of the things. Bama,
Sure.
his brain's blown out.
Sure.
Within 2 feet of you.
Sure.
And the other things you dealt with, so it's catharsis, but
Sure.
but obviously you're writing it in my opinion, it's going to be like an American Sniper-ish type of story. I think it's going to grab people. It's good. It's a really good write up. But I think for you, it's a therapy.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
for what you're doing.
Sure.
the nature of the podcast is meeting people from here,
Sure.
people that work here, people that live here on the coast, and what to expect if you move here or if you've lived here for 100 years and what's going on. So we met at a chamber event.
Yes.
I mean, you were adamant about making sure we got Kurt on here, and thank you for doing
Thank
that.
you-
and
thank you for
being
doing that.
here, because
Thank
this
you,
is
Ron.
this is a little different than what we normally do, but it's exactly what Jason
We
and
wanna
I
do.
definitely want to do. Is open up what's down here and the people from here. So real quick though, tell us about what you're doing. And you're with Ross Sykes
I'm with Ross Sykes at Homefront Lending out of Fairhope.
Yep.
So my day job is as a mortgage broker. So buy, sell, refi, friends, family, and coworkers, let them know. We'll look at what we can do for you. We're all veteran owned. Ross is, as you know, Air Force. I'm
Yep.
Army. We've got a couple of guys who are Army veterans as well. So that's why I said with Kirk, that's close to the heart as far as what we do. But in addition to that, I've got a lot of writing background here. I wrote for Lanyap full time for a decade. You know,
Did a
and
Lanyap
with Rob.
podcast,
Yeah,
too.
had a Lanyap podcast it was actually the flagship for Johnny Gwynn and Deep Fried Studios. Shout out if y'all don't know who that is.
Yeah.
For his studio, I was the flagship for a couple of years, a year and a half, 2 years for that. And so I've got it, and writing's always been in my blood. I've got a literary family, and that's where I can kind of connect with Kirk with what he's doing as well. Deeply entrenched in Mobile and Baldwin County. I love the fact that Kirk, if the book comes out and it blows up, which I think it may, he's from this area. He's Kirk is as much homegrown from this area as anybody. So for him to see this success, if it happens, which I think it will, it's going to be a reflection of not just him in Atlanta, but this area, because this shaped and molded him, who he is today.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
This whole growing up here and his college experience, this shaped Kirk to being shaped here locally, in my opinion.
Okay.
I agree.
All right. So one of the questions, and Levi's kind of made fun of it, my little fairy dust question. I think it's great for right now. If you could, I mean, you grew up here, you went to school here, living in Atlanta now. What does Mobile need to do to get better?
Well, because I've been away for so long, I would have to tell you what kind of drove me away from Mobile.
Absolutely, yeah.
There were opportunities in Atlanta that were not in Mobile. And I understand the concept. We called it old money Mobile. And I'm not throwing stones at anybody. I mean, I'm just, you are who you are.
Great answer. Great answer.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, but that was kind of what drove me to Atlanta. I was working in the bars here and just working like an animal, and I ran into an ex-girlfriend, and she was working at the Gold Club. She was like, "Man, what are you doing here? You could make so much money up there in Atlanta." And I was like, "Okay." So I packed up my Trans Am and drove up to Atlanta, and that was 1998, and I never left. If you're trying to hold on to power, the old money Mobile, I'm not judging you, but man, it's only going to work for so long. So my advice to the leadership of Mobile is, hey man, bring in some opportunities here.
Yeah, and the other thing I'll add to wrap it, put a button on it, is Dick, when Kurt's signing books over at Page and Palette and his movie's out, and you guys can say, hey, this all started with our podcast.
Yeah.
That's
it. That's it.
Absolutely.
Back in 2024, and it's 2027, and he's signing an autograph and go, hey, I'm going to Page and Palette because these guys, gave me some, voice time here. And I really do think, man, it's going to be a great book. I haven't read the other ones, but I think this one that I've read is going to be something else. Notwithstanding that I may be on the audiobook or whatever, that doesn't matter.
Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate that, man.
And
All
Kirk,
right.
we appreciate you being here. It was an absolute pleasure to meet you and have you down, man. And thank you for helping out our little old podcast, because we when we have big names like this is pretty impressive for us, and I know we'll get a lot of traction with this, and we appreciate your time.
No, I
coming
appreciate
down and
it.
helping us.
Thank y'all for the invitation and for
Absolutely.
your time. Thank you so much.
And
All right.
when the book's published, we'll let y'all know. Awesome. Thank y'all so much for watching, and give us a like and a thumbs up. And if you want more information about Kirk's book, it'll be down below, but we'll also post it on our socials at that time. But again, thanks, Kirk, and we'll see y'all next time.